The new manual is just three circles. Yeah, that's the way it is.
Good evening, Valentine Toastmasters. What a great crowd we have tonight. Thank you all for coming, both guests and visitors. Okay, I was distracted by the word of the day, box. If you have an electronic gadget, doodad, widget, whatever, please make sure you set it on stun or silent or off so that we do not disturb the speakers while they're speaking. And without any further ado, I'm going to introduce our president, Frank Brammer.
Thank you, Valentine Toastmasters. First, I'd like to welcome back our guests, Alex and Gautam. Gautam, I understand you're serving in a role tonight, so that's great. Just getting in there, getting started. That's awesome. Also, we have a brand new member. Well, technically, we do need to vote him in. So, David, if you'll escort Richard out, so we can take a quick vote. Okay, Valentine Toastmasters, all those in favor of Richard joining our club, please raise your hand. Are there any opposed? It's unanimous. Connie, please let him know and come back in.
Sorry.
Sorry.
What, it
You
says
took his
early
money.
and often.
Jose, you took his money. Is that why you're apologizing?
Let's all just like have one look. Sorry.
Not that they'll be
Bad news, Richard.
Yeah. You're in. Well, we already got your money, so come on up. Would you like to quickly mention formally to our club? Richard, will you please affirm to attend all meetings regularly and prepare for each one fully, to apply yourself to the program outlined in the Toastmasters manuals, participate actively in club activities, evaluate others in a positive, constructive manner, build open, friendly relationships with fellow members, and bring others to the club so they can gain in the benefits?
I will.
Thank you, Richard. Will the club members please rise? Will the members of Valentine Toastmasters please pledge to support Richard in his quest for self-development, provide him with positive and helpful evaluations, maintain a friendly and supportive atmosphere, give the opportunities to others to grow along with us, and to make Toastmasters membership a rewarding and fulfilling experience?
We will.
Great. Richard, you're formally part of our club. Thank you.
Thank you.
We are progressing along just fine on our DCP status. Connie has recently received a leadership award. What was it? No, it was a leadership award. Louise. What did I say?
Connie.
Oh my God.
Oh no! Now everybody's getting labeled.
Everybody's name is Connie.
I am so sorry. And I understand she's about to earn another one, so we're doing great on that status. We do need to get our CCs completed up. I know we have some people that are really close, so we need just to continue on that progress and get those wrapped up. And our membership, I believe, at the very least, this gets us to 4 official members. I think some doubt where come up is, but we'll figure that out. Okay, to get this meeting started, one of our most experienced Toastmasters, a founding member of the Valentine Toastmasters group, is one of our most advanced Toastmasters, Richard Morrison.
You can call me Rick. Thank you, Frank. Thank you all for coming tonight. It is always good to come here because I feel stressed out most times during the day, and my work has been overwhelming. And I said last week, it's great on Thursday to be able to get up and leave work at a decent time. And even though that was more like 5:15 today, I still was able to leave before most in the office and run like the devil to get here. And it's interesting, I've chosen tonight as a theme, vote early and vote often by coming to Toastmasters. And we've already voted tonight. How about that? We'll have votes again later on tonight, but I thought with the election coming up that it'd give us a chance to practice tonight in that regard. I especially want to thank a person who doesn't get a lot of thanks in doing this, is our Sergeant at Arms for preparing the room for the meeting. It a lot of times goes unnoticed, but particularly as the Toastmaster tonight and running to get here late as it was, it's wonderful to walk into the room and see it set up. So I want us to give a special round of applause to David for doing this job that a lot of times goes unnoticed.
Well, I'm going to pass on your thanks of gratitude for setting up the room. I do appreciate the observation there, but tonight I was also tardy, so I think we owe honors to our president and our VPE for helping us set up.
Well, thank you all. It's really a statement about our club is that we all pitch in to get it ready, and we all pitch in to wrap it up at the end. And in the spirit of helping, I want to thank everybody that pitched in somewhat at the last minute to help out. I have a crew that helps with the meeting along the way, and particularly when I reached out last night to Phil Jones to be grammarian, it was especially pleasant to have such a quick reply and that he would be glad to do it. So please welcome to the lectern tonight's grammarian, Phil Jones.
Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and there are guests, I think. I feel like one. All right, so several. The grammarian will count your A's, and I feel very special tonight because nobody's here to count mine. So I'm very happy about that. And be looking for your use of words. I am supposed to have written out or brought with me and studied at least what the role of the grammarian is. I did not do that. So this is as much of it as I remember. The word for the day, that's one of my jobs, is to introduce the word for the day, which Rick has already provided for us. And I think you may have mentioned it, but at any rate, the word for the day is electorate. It is a noun. It's not a verb. It's not electorate. And that sounds like expectorate. So if you're having trouble thinking about spitting tonight, it's not spitting, it's the electorate. You are part of the electorate, the body of persons that are entitled to vote in an election. And so don't forget that between now and Tuesday, you will be needing to take advantage of your rights as part of the electorate. I'll be listening to hear for the use of that word this evening. Don't let me down. I want to make over all of you. So try to fit that into your talks. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. And indeed, I think the key word in the definition of electorate is entitled to vote. Because as we know, many people entitled aren't registered. And many people who are registered don't vote. And in a speech I made probably about 4 years ago, I wasn't a Toastmaster 8 years ago. 4 years ago was, I think if you look at the statistics of the election 8 years ago, that there are the people that are entitled to vote that don't register and don't vote outnumber the number of people who vote for the winner of the presidential election. So that if everybody that was entitled, everybody in the electorate that doesn't register and vote could go out and vote, they could elect somebody else, somebody we never even heard of. Quite a thought, since we're all part of that electorate. Also helping tonight, in his role, stepping forward, almost a member, and recruited to be timer is Gautam.
Yes.
And I don't know the last name, but please welcome to the lecture Gautam. Please explain the role of timer and what its importance is.
Well, thank you, Rick, and my job this evening will be that of the timer, and I'd like to thank Frank and David for giving me giving me the role for this important job for the evening. So let's see if I can get this right. So there's going to be 2 icebreaker speeches, as I understand, and that'll last between 4 minutes and 6 minutes. basically, if those who are giving the icebreaker speeches had their speech below 3 minutes and 30 seconds, you get disqualified. Or if it exceeds 6 minutes and 30 seconds, you would also disqualified. There's basically 3 lights: the green light, which I will turn on at 4 minutes, yellow light at 5 minutes, and the red light at 6 minutes, after which the red light will remain on until the end of your speech, however long that might take. So that's the rules for the people who are going to give the icebreaker speeches. Then I believe you have 1 advanced speech, I think, that's right? Yes. And your time will be between 7 and 9 minutes, as I understand it. Again, speech less than 6 minutes and 30 seconds, you face disqualification. Similarly, for exceeding 9 minutes and 30 seconds. And again, 7 minutes, I'll turn on the green light, 8 minutes the yellow light, and 9 minutes the red light, after which it will remain on. Then we have the table topics, correct? The table topics, I'm not sure how many table topics speakers there will be, but there can be as many as 6, I believe. But again, it's between 1 minute and 2 minutes. The green light will be on at 1 minute, yellow light on at 1.5 minutes, and red light on at 2 minutes. And finally, the evaluation, the speakers who will be the evaluators for the evening will be between 2 minutes and 3 minutes. Again, 2 minutes for the green light, 2.5 minutes for the yellow light, and 3 minutes for the red light. So I believe that covers everything as far as the timer is concerned, and I'm not sure who announces the times at the end.
I will ask you for a timer's report, or
Okay.
the general evaluator will ask you for a timer's report
Okay.
to give at that time. All right?
All right.
Thank you.
Very much.
Well done. And lastly, helping me in this, as well as Gautam, superseding what's on the agenda, stepping in at the last second to be our ballot counter tonight is Connie Rist.
Well, at the end of this evening's program, I'm going to ask the electorate to cast your votes. Well, you will be asked to cast your votes. One for the table topics, the best one, best speaker, as well as the best evaluator. So I will be gathering all the ballots and counting them. It's just real simple. So, very long.
Thank you, Connie. And Connie upheld one of the unwritten rules of Toastmasters in that the lectern area should never be left unattended. I was actually speaking to our table topics master, giving him some guidelines while Connie finished. And she finished, but she didn't leave the lectern until I ran back up here. So well done in that regard, Connie. And did you mention the red cups?
Red cups? No, I did.
And the ballots to be torn up at this time so that won't interrupt speakers later. But that's fine. And again, you'll use these ballots as the electorate of our body, the entitled body to vote. So if you have a ballot, you can vote. As was mentioned by our timer, it is a special night for Toastmasters. It is always a special night when we have icebreaker given for the club. And tonight, the special treat, we have 2. What's so special about icebreakers? It is an introduction of a new member to the club. We really get to know at least a picture of who these people are. One always remembers their own icebreaker the first time they got up at Toastmasters and had that butterfly feeling. But what a wonderful thrill it was when they were done. And it is also a wonderful feeling to see that new Toastmaster take that first step toward the Competent Communicator Manual completion with that first speech. So tonight's first speaker is Andrew Medlin, and he is going to give us his picture of himself, his introduction to our club. He's entitled his icebreaker, North Carolina nomad. Please welcome to the lectern, Andrew Medlin.
Thank you, Toastmasters and honored guests. Today, I thought I would start out with telling you a little bit about where I'm from and how I got here to Charlotte, and then tell you a little bit about some of my hobbies, and then wrap up with what I like to call rapid fire fun facts. I titled my speech North Carolina Nomad because I'm a North Carolina guy, born and raised, but I lived in 8 different towns and 11 different homes within the state, so I moved around quite a bit. The reason I moved around so much is my dad worked for the Boy Scouts of America for 30 years. And in order to advance his career quicker, he would take jobs in different districts, which involved moving around. And it was not an electorate family, because they did not have a choice in the move. So we moved around quite a bit for that. And I was born in Rocky Mount, which is on the eastern part of the state, and it's right off Interstate 95. There's really only 2 reasons that anybody usually has heard of Rocky Mount. One, Hardee's was started there, although you would have no clue anymore because unfortunately the headquarters has moved away now. And the second reason is it's the halfway point between New York and Florida. So for a very small town, it has a disproportionate number of hotels because everybody will stop, spend the night, and hit the road again early the next day. So I lived, born in Rocky Mount, moved around in the East Coast a little bit, and then moved over to Concord, where I graduated high school right up the road here. And once I graduated high school, I decided I wanted to go back east. So in East Carolina University, I was there for 7 fun-filled years, and I got my undergraduate and graduate degree in accounting. Then I followed a girl back over this way to Charlotte, who luckily became my wife. And so when I was coming back this way, I wanted to get a job using my degree, and I ended up working for Grant Thornton, which is a public accounting firm, and I was an external auditor, auditing financial statements. I was there for 4 years, and most recently I've been on the other part of the business park here, the Babcock & Wilcox Company, as an internal auditor. So as much as people like to be audited and love auditors, I don't want to do that for the rest of my life. So that kind of brings me to the hobbies part of my speech. I have 2 main hobbies, and one is kind of studying personal finance. The other one is studying how to manage a small business. And I read articles and I do news feeds, and I just try and stay up on it as much as I can because my main goal is to become financially independent and to be my hard work to put money in my pockets instead of a corporation's pockets. So I work really hard to learn that stuff so that eventually, in the long term, I can own my own business of some sort, which I think will be owning and renting real estate. And then my wife is a psychotherapist, and I'd like to help her build her own private practice. So that's a little bit about where I'm from, how I got here, and kind of what my hobbies are and what I would like my future to look like. So now I will do a couple of the rapid fire fun facts. The first is that I love to live in Charlotte. I'm really high on Charlotte for some reason, and I love the newness. I love the young professional crowd. I like the excitement of new businesses coming to town and new venues and new events, and I try and get out and support the local activities that are going on. But connected to that, fun fact number 2 is that my road rage seems to be building the longer I live here. And my commute got a little bit longer from Grant Thornton to the Babcock & Wilcox Company, and so I could feel it building every day. Fun fact number 3, traveling. Part of the reason I took the job with the Babcock & Wilcox Company is because there's a lot of traveling involved, and some of it is to places that I don't know I normally would have got to go. Earlier this year, I got to go to Australia and China, and next year I might be able to go to India. And all the trips aren't the most glamorous trips in the world, but I don't think they're places I would have necessarily spent my own money to go to. So if I can go on the company's dime, that's pretty good. Fun fact number 4, my wife, she's a patient woman. When I met her in Greenville and to when we got married was 7 years, and we've only been together for married 2 years now. So She's a hard worker and a very patient lady. And fun fact number 5, I love the Panthers. Kind of relates to the whole loving Charlotte thing, I guess. But I'm a huge Panthers fan. I love them in season, out of season, winning season, losing season this year. And so I'm always up for a topic of or conversation about the Panthers if anybody wants to talk about it. So that's a little window into who I am. And as I progress through Toastmasters, I look forward to getting to know each of you. Thank you.
Mr. Timer, could we have 1 minute on the clock so that everybody who's separated their ballots has a chance to maybe jot down a little note to Andrew regarding his speech, something that impacted them? Thank you, Mr. Timer. Now for the second half of our icebreaker doubleheader. Darren Fowler is somebody that I haven't had a chance to see very many times. And I think this last time it really threw me when he's wearing the sling. So in addition to that, though, he was Timer in addition to wearing the sling. So I have to give him a lot of credit for stepping forward and doing that, sort of playing through the pain, I guess, kind of integrity that we like to see in Toastmasters. Tonight, Darren is entitled his icebreaker 30, which to me is rather cryptic, or it's just how old he is. But we're going to soon find out. We don't like to give a lot away in terms of introductions for our icebreakers, so just help me welcome to the lectern Darren Fowler. Can't leave the lectern unattended.
Mr. Toastmaster, fellow members, and distinguished guests. Numbers appear everywhere in our lives. I'm sure most of us in this room have a favorite number or had one as a kid. Show of hands, who has a favorite number? Right. So some numbers are more significant than others, such as 40 might have a biblical significance. The 40 days and 40 nights that Moses was on the mountaintop with God twice, and the 40 days that that applies to the flood in Noah's Ark. 3, there's 3 strikes and an out, right? 3 outs in an inning. 7 days in a week, lucky number 7. And then there's 10, as in the most important, the 10 projects in the Competent Communicator Manual. I'm a math guy, I always have been, and I can remember as a kid, I collected a lot of baseball cards, and the thing that I liked most about the baseball cards was flipping it over and seeing all the statistics on the back. And if you're not familiar with the baseball card, the statistics on the back dictated the amount of years that the player was in the league, or the tenure of that player. And so on the back of a card, I brought one for a prop. I have John Franco here, and
he was he spent many years in the major leagues, and you can tell how old they were based on the size of the font. And if you needed a microscope, they were pretty old. So so I found value in the numbers in collecting baseball cards, and I find value in numbers elsewhere in life as well. 30 is my number. It's not my favorite number, wasn't my jersey number. I didn't choose it, it chose me. And the reason I know it chose me is because it sets the universe in alignment, which is how it's supposed to be. And I'll get to that in a little bit. In the process of preparing this speech, I found that for all of my major life decisions, I had one thing, each decision had one thing in common, and that was the number 30. Since we only have 6 minutes, I'll start in 2006 when I began in banking, and I was working for World Savings, which is a bank in Northern California where I was born and raised in the Bay Area, where road rage is real, by the way. And about 6 months into my time at World Savings, they said, or the CEO said, "We're selling to Wachovia, so your jobs are in jeopardy." So about a week after the announcement, I got a two-sided folder, and I can remember this like it was yesterday. It was a silver folder, and it was, the kind that you used to carry in grade school. And it had two pouches, one on the left, one on the right, and on the left side was a severance package, and on the right side was an invitation to join the team in Charlotte. And we all know which way I chose. I chose the right side, which impacted every decision moving forward for me. And on that document on the right, in the right pouch, it says, "You have 30 days to decide whether or not you want to make this major decision, this major life-changing decision." And like I said, I was born and raised in the Bay Area, didn't know anywhere else, so I took a blind, flipped a coin, and ended up in Charlotte. Now, naturally, my mother was concerned. She had all of the, she's just being a mom. She thought that I was moving across the country and that I was going to meet a girl, get married, buy a house together, have a baby together, and she was never going to see me again. Most of that has happened, but she has seen me, and I haven't had kids yet. But so that just proves moms are always right. But my wife, when I met her back in January of 2008, I had to really look at the calendar because I couldn't believe it. It took me 30 months to propose to her, which is a long time. I don't recommend it. You're just torturing yourself because I knew early on that she was the one. But for whatever reason, I took my time, and in June of 2010, I proposed. She said yes. And about a year later, we got married, and within a 30-day span around my wedding, I accepted an offer to move from Wells Fargo to Bank of America, and 30 days later, I accepted another offer to go from Bank of America to Diebold. So that there was and for every feast, there is a famine, because 30 days prior to my 1-year anniversary with Diebold, I was laid off. So, and I am not kidding. This is exact. And to me, 30 is my number. And like I said, I didn't choose it, it chose me. And the silver lining with being laid off is I was able to finally get my shoulder fixed, and I wouldn't be here if I was still in a job. So that 30 is my number, and I bet if you looked close enough, you'll find your number too, Mr. Toastmaster.
Well done, icebreakers. Aren't they neat the way we get to experience their personality when they give their icebreakers? It's like we suddenly know them. They've been guests, they become members. But now, don't you feel like we know Andrew and Darren now? I really like icebreakers. They're fantastic. Mr. Timer, can we have 1 minute to write a note to Darren? Okay, so now we go from icebreakers to the other end of the spectrum, an advanced Toastmaster speech project. And that's the neat thing about Toastmasters is that as a guest, you can see the various stages of development and how they come along. Louise Nottingham, who is our Vice President of Education, tells us that storytellers can be historians, using their talents to tell the world about events that shape it. Stories about the Knights of the Round Table, battles, explorers, and leaders can be as interesting today as they were many years ago. When telling an historic story, they like to narrate to one event, make sure it has plot, conflict, characters, a setting, and lots of action. They want to develop these characters and present you a true story. Tonight, Louise Nottingham is presenting Project 5 from the Advanced Toastmasters Manual Storytelling. Her objectives are to understand the purpose of stories about historical events or people, and to use her storytelling skills developed in preceding projects to tell a story about an historic event or person. And in this case, I think she's doing it about an historic person because she's going to tell us about Hans Christian Andersen and his story, The Ugly Duckling. Please welcome to the lectern, Louise Nottingham.
Does everyone know the story of the Ugly Duckling?
Yeah.
Does everyone know that it's an autobiographical story? It is. So I'm really going to tell you, really both stories. But I'll be telling you about Hans. Hans Christian Andersen was born to a very, very, very poor family. But Dad kept telling everyone, I am descended from royalty. Dad was a shoemaker. Mom was not well educated and very poor, a few years older than Dad. And at some point, they welcomed to the world Hans. Hans was the apple of his father's eye. I'm telling you, in fact, it is supposed, and I believe written, that Hans' father, whose name was also Hans, I believe, read to his baby from the first day. And in fact, that's the only thing that would quiet little baby Hans down, was to hear his father's voice reading stories. As poor as these people were, at one point, 3 families lived in their tiny little house. And their family of 3 had 1 room. In the front was the shoemaker's area. Above the hearth was a bookshelf where the books were. Now this was early 1800s in Denmark, and there was an educational system. But really, the people with money got to be educated, even though it was a public educational system. The people without money got to learn skills. Hans got to be educated. His education, it said, was paid for by King Frederick. So perhaps there was something to the story of Hans' father being the illegitimate heir or royalty. We don't know for sure. Historians still are trying to find out. But Hans did go to school. Okay, I said he was the apple of his mother's eye, an apple of his father's eye, an apple of his grandmother's eye, and we don't know about his crazy grandfather, who was crazy. But Hans did not like to be told what to do. He didn't like to draw within the lines, and he didn't like to do what everyone else did. And so he didn't get along well in school with his teachers. But all of us know that that means nothing if your classmates don't like you. Okay, I want you to picture Hans Christian Andersen. I'm going to try and develop a picture for you. He has grown too much faster. He's grown faster than anyone else in the class. He stands head and shoulders taller than everyone else in the class. He has a huge nose. You can just hear the children taunting him. Oh, Hans, your nose, it's so big it arrives a day before you do to class. You're not late, Hans. Your nose was here long before the bell was rang. And his ears, big, and they stuck out. So you know the man grew up just kind of hunching, as children will do when they grow so much taller than their classmates. And all the classmates picked on him because he went to school with people who had really nice clothes. He was the son of a shoemaker, and so he had shoes, but they were resold hand-me-downs from someone else. And his clothing was also hand-me-downs and had a lot of stitching on it, so he didn't quite fit in. So when his teacher and his mother got in a fight, and his mother said, you know, you don't have to go back to that school. He didn't, at the age of 11. That's, to me, very young to become the writer that he is. I envision him as being somewhat of a Sheldon with an eidetic memory, because he wrote everything every day, constantly writing. His father died around between the age of 11 and 14, and Hans left. He left that town, much like the ugly duckling finally had enough and left and set off for the world. And when he went to Copenhagen, he wanted to be an actor. He wanted to be on the stage and perform. And he went to the theater and he tried out. But he wanted to perform. So he went to the choir and he auditioned. But he really, really, really knew that he was somebody. He was descended from royalty. So he went knocking on doors, and he went to the house of Jonas Collin, and he badgered the housekeeper who answered the door to please let him in. And she's like, they have a party going on. We can't let you in. They've got a party. All the people in the theater are here. I need to come in and sing for them. And so he did. And he sang for Jonas. And somewhere in badgering the housekeeper, somewhere in trying out at the theater for Mr. Collins, somewhere in there, Mr. Collins saw something. And so he took him under his wing, and he rented a room out in his house to him, and he had him work at the theater. And he gave him small bit roles. And Hans kept reading and writing. But when Jonas saw what he wrote, wasn't good. And then when Hans's voice, remember he was only 14, what happens when boys turn about 16? That beautiful voice that they might have had cracks. And that went his career down the tubes. And he, even though he wrote every day, he wasn't really good at spelling. So Jonas said to him, I see something in you, but you've got to learn to write. And so he sent him back to elementary school at the age of 17. And Hans stayed in the elementary school with the little children. He went every day until he finally felt that he had done well. And he wrote a story, and it was published in the theater or in the papers, and he got a check for money, and he quit school again. But he didn't stop writing. And several years later, he wrote a book. Do you know what that book was? Come on. The Ugly Duckling. Mr. Toastmaster.
Mr. Timer, could we have 1 minute to allow our members and guests to write a note to Louise on a story that I'd never heard before or wasn't even aware of? Although it seems you can make the connection that indeed The Ugly Duckling was autobiographical. So, familiar with the story, unfamiliar with the story behind the story. Thank you, Mr. Timer. That concludes the portion of the meeting for prepared speeches and speech projects. Let's move on to where we can have a little bit of fun, a little bit of excitement, a little bit of, I don't know what's going to come next. That involves introducing our table topics master for the evening, Ron and Cherith.
Thank you. Greetings, fellow Toastmasters and honored guests. Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. You're catching on. This is the Celtic New Year today. And there are quite a few holidays around this time of year. Yesterday was Halloween, right? Today is the Celtic New Year, and tomorrow is another one, which I'll tell you about that in a moment. But first, I'd like to tell you a little bit of a story about the New Year's Eve for the Celts. They were nature worshippers. They had many, many gods. They had a sun god, and they had a god of darkness called the Prince of Darkness, also known as Samhain. And it's the festival of Samhain, which they have on Halloween. And the story goes that at the end of October, the end after all the harvest and everything's put away, and it's getting colder and darker, the Prince of Darkness takes the sun god prisoner. And so, David, I would like to ask you to come up and answer a question for me.
Where did the Prince of Darkness take the sun god, and what did he do?
Mr. Tabletop Master, fellow Toastmasters and guests, where did he take the Prince of Darkness, take the sun god, and what did he do with him? Well, he might actually have taken him into the depths of the earth and the dregs of the earth and left him there. I know in many Greek mythologies that's what happens during the winter. Persephone gets taken off to the underworld. I think it was Persephone. So perhaps that's something similar that happened to this particular. But, you know, there's probably something different. The Celts are kind of strange. They would dress themselves up in blue. I don't know which electorate decided that they would do blue, but that's what happened. And they would fight. And since the Celts, correct, I believe, were more northern England, it's probably some craggy, rocky shoal and cave that he got taken into. And maybe the tides are weird up there, and it goes over top of the cave, and he can't get out for a while. Mr. Toastman.
Well, on that evening, the Druids, have you heard of the Druids? You probably heard that word. But the Druids were actually the priests of the Celts. They were the ones who were in control. They told everyone how to behave, what to do. They took care of them as well. And they actually went on Halloween. They went to a forest of oak. They worshipped oak trees as well. And they set fires. And since this was at the end of the harvest time, they actually would take sacrifices of grains and other things that they grew, as well as animals. And they would set fires and offer sacrifices to all these many gods. And at the end of the evening, when it was actually morning, they would dance around and go crazy, actually. I don't know what else they did, but they would have embers, and they would take these embers to the houses of every one of their people in their villages. And they would hand that to them, and they would then use that for warming their homes and for cooking their food. Richard. What do you do to keep your home warm and free of evil spirits?
Thank you, Mr. Table Topics Master, fellow Toastmasters. To keep my house warm and from evil spirits, actually I'm kind of hot-blooded, so I don't get cold very often. My wife's always turning the heat up, and I'm always turning it down. And to keep it from evil spirits, that's a hard one, because I guess according to my wife, I guess I would be the cause of the evil spirit. So, I guess in her opinion, she would have to get rid of me to get rid of the evil spirits, but I don't think we have any evil spirits. But just to keep the house warm is to keep it friendly and inviting and at a comfortable temperature. And that's kind of it.
One last question to ask. This relates to the festival on November 1st, which is actually, it's called Samhain. It runs for 2 days. They honored both the sun god and the Prince of Darkness, who was known as Samhain. They would parade around in costumes. They'd wear skins and the heads of animals. That became eventually known as the first Halloween over the years. And so, Phil, may I ask you to... Given that they were wearing skins and heads of animals, I would like to ask, what was your scariest Halloween costume?
My scariest Halloween costume is probably the one that I am
wearing this evening. And I'll tell you why.
Take it off,
Mr. Toastmaster. Oh no, that's really scary. Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters. The scariest costume that I'm wearing tonight is that of engineer. So, because as you know, engineers are pretty scary people if you spend much time with them, trying to understand them and so forth. So I've been working on that for most of my life after having first tried to avoid becoming an engineer. So son of a gun, I did. So this is pretty much the uniform. I just put it on and try to get out of the house before my wife gives me too hard a time. I do want to say along those lines, since Rick brought up the take it off, this is the perfect opportunity to tell you that I always wanted to get a motorcycle because I wanted to ride through the streets and feel the wind blowing through my hair. But my wife told me she was not going to let me ride without a shirt. This is
the table topics portion of our meeting.
Thank you, Ron, for giving us enlightenment through various culprits. The final part of our meeting is the evaluation portion, which most of us know is the keystone of Toastmasters. Tonight's general evaluator is Ben Rosenthal.
Fellow Toastmasters, honored guests, this is my first time as general evaluator, and I have to say, it's looking like it's going to be a piece of cake. Everything's going so smoothly. Tonight, or right now, we go with our feedback section, and leading us off is Club President Frank Brammer, who will be evaluating Andrew on his intro.
Thank you, Ben, Valentine Toastmasters guest, and Andrew. Excellent job. We all remember the icebreaker. That first speech, getting up here. It's hard not to remember it, the intensity with the emotion, the nerves. It's a wonderful experience. And I'm glad we got it on tape. Hopefully we'll save the recording this time and you'll have it for a long time to come. One of the most important things any of us can do as presenters is establish and control the structure of our presentation. And you did that very well. Right at the very beginning, you told us what you're going to do. This is my presentation. Here I'm going to lay it out. And you flowed through it just perfectly. That is so hard to do, and to pick that skill up very early, it's a great job. I loved your gestures. Everyone here know I'm actually kind of big on gestures. I don't know why. Gestures have never been my natural thing. Maybe it's because I need to work on it and study it to improve my own. But your gestures were so well coordinated to your message. Even, and I'm going to mention this one little thing, you had a little bit of nerve showing with some hand wringing. Works on with time as you build confidence. That'll go away. But your gestures were so naturally coordinated, and they were subtle. When you use a number, you throw the number out. But it wasn't like this. It was just subtle, but you can clearly see. I love the asymmetrical gestures too. It really helps enhance your message. So you did a very good job with that. It's a hard skill to develop, learn. So to do it naturally, it's a great asset for you. A little bit of verbal graffiti. Not too bad. We all struggle with ums, ahs. It was my major issue when I joined Toastmasters that I wanted to overcome. It comes with time. And that comes with the other thing I wanted to mention was pace. We get up here, we want to say a lot. We feel like we have very little time, so we start rushing through it. A little bit of nerves will tighten up, so it'll have. So that comes with time and practice. So pace and the verbal graffiti will go away. Great humor. I have struggled with humor. Good job of introducing it, bringing it in through the presentation. Very good eye contact. Notes are not a problem. Lecterns are not a problem. As long as you're connected with your audience and you looked around. And it's hard to say that you actually looked everybody in the eye, but you're clearly looking around the audience, and that makes everybody feel connected. That's very good. Great personal story, and that's what ultimately wins. Make it impersonal, drawing us in, connecting us, makes it a conversation. Everybody wants to join in, and everybody will stay connected to you. Great start. And I look forward to your growth.
Our next evaluator is Jose, who will be providing a feedback on Darren.
Fellow Toastmasters, most welcome guests, and especially Darren. So it took a letters guy to evaluate a numbers guy. Not quite a match made in heaven, but I do have to say that Darren caught my attention. Therefore, that was a very good speech. I'm going to divide this evaluation in 3 parts. I'm going to give Darren something that I found really good about his speech. In the middle, I'm going to give him a point of polish. And at the end, I'm going to mention a very strong point that I found out. Structure and content of the speech. It was so good, and let me just break it down so that we know what exactly is to have a really good speech. Darren begins with a question, and again, it was kind of like a regular question. Who has a favorite number? Who has a favorite color? Who has a favorite food? And then from then onwards, he moved on to answer that question from his own perspective. 40 Moses, 3 strikes, 7 days a week, 10 prophecies. And he moves on to tell us a little bit about him showing a baseball card. So we get to know that he's indeed a numbers guy. And then he drops a bomb. 30. That sets my universe in motion. My goodness. You don't hear that very often. And then he moves on to talk about 30, his number. And we know a lot about him. California, jobs, the folder, coming to Charlotte, his mom, his wife, his shoulder, and so on and so forth. So it was such a very well structured. It was entertaining, and there was a lot of information on it. We spoke at the beginning of the speech, moving on to the second part, where I believe it could be a point of polish. We had a conversation at the beginning, and Darren mentioned about the verbal graffiti. I saw some verbal graffiti, and I want to give you a specific advice on how to handle that, and it's the pause. When you feel the urge to keep going, that's when the ahs and the ums and sus comes. So the best thing is to pause and breathe. And just look around the room. And slowly but surely the verbal graffiti is going to disappear. And moving on to the third portion, which is I consider a very strong point for Darren, is his clarity with the words, with the pronunciation, with the ideas, the articulation of those ideas. And I also like the fact that he included a little extemporaneous comment about the road rage, which means that Darren was not completely focused on his speech, but he was comfortable enough to add a little something to the speech. Great speech, and looking forward to your next one. Thank you.
Our next evaluator is Dorothy, who will be evaluating Louise.
All right. Good evening, fellow Toastmasters, and welcome guests, and Mr. General Evaluator, and certainly Louise at the far end. I got to get used to this time lectern. I'm more used to this. Anyways, in a historic story, we were jumping really into the past, getting to know Mr. Hans. A name that I hear very often because my boss has the same first name. I don't think he looks like Hans Christian Andersen though, but the Hans, son of a shoemaker, as well as a not so educated mother, which sort of, the educational part kind of traveled and continued to be a part of his life. He grew up in a small house, and then for some reason, ended up being a famous writer. I did not know that somebody really had to go through so many rough spots in his life, leaving home at 11, finding finally a mentor at 14, going back to school at 17, and here we are, world famous writer that we all take for granted. At least I did until now. So thank you. I think this was very educational, and you pointed out, I think one of the things that you were set up to do is creating a plot and getting your message across clearly, and I think that certainly happened. I enjoyed your body language and the way that you were imitating him to draw something, or his huge nose or his big ears, and then of course he had these worn off elbows on his clothes. I think that, and then changing your voice with it, the inflection, made us feel, oh yeah, he's such a, bad, what a bad situation to be in. And then certainly you're always strong on the icon and certainly the storytelling, because you are in the storytelling book. In terms of recommendation, there was one break where you couldn't quite remember the name of the gentleman that ended up being his mentor. I know that can happen, that you're just so focused on a specific subject matter, and all of a sudden it was James. I can't even remember the name right now either. However, you corrected it 3 times, and I think that's sort of maybe like a style issue, that either you corrected once by making a pause and making sure, what was it again, or overgoing it and just staying with the name that you had, and then at the end, brief disclaimer, sorry, I totally misspoke. His name is really, and it was just a small difference or variation that you utilized. So in all, I think it was very educational and very well done. So thank you for the stories, and I think you completed the manual, right? Is that another advanced?
Yeah,
fine.
2 manuals that I'll have to.
All right. So big round of applause.
At this point, if I could get a timer's report. Come on up.
Well, I'm glad to report that no one was disqualified tonight. As far as the 2 icebreakers, Andrew, you were clocked at 5 minutes and 14 seconds. Darren, you were actually on the dot 6 minutes and 30 seconds. So you were 1 second off of being disqualified. So good job. I kid you not. I saw the time was 6 minutes and 30 seconds. Luis, you clocked in at 8 minutes and 29 seconds. So you were well within the allotted time. As far as the table topics, David was 1 minute and 4 seconds. Richard was 54 seconds. And Phil was 1 minute and 5 seconds. And finally, the evaluators, Frank was clocked at 2 minutes and 46 seconds. Jose at 3 minutes and 16 seconds, and Dorothy, at 3 minutes and 19 seconds. So that's the report on the timing. And again, thank you for being here for the opportunity.
At this time, I would like to ask you, the electorate, to vote for your favorite speakers, the prepared speeches, table topics, and the evaluators. While doing this voting counting, can we get a grammarian report?
Mr. General Evaluator, so Mr. Toastmaster, fellow members and guests, I was waiting with fascination to hear the grammarian's report, and then I realized it was in fact me that was to give it. So the use of the word electorate, remember I said electorate, 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 you must use the word electorate. Well, we had 3 people who used the word electorate. 4, was it 4? Myself, because me?
I know I snuck one in.
Oh, good. This is backup. I like that. I have. Oh, you snuck it in. Oh, very good. Okay, very good. 4. That's right. 5 if you include me. Rick, Andrew, and David. And there was all. So that was actually good because it's a tough one to just slip in. As a general note, I wanted to say that not saying as I just did, is very difficult, particularly when it's your icebreaker or if you're speaking off the cuff. The unfortunate, well, I suppose it wasn't that unfortunate. I was going to say the unfortunate thing is that all of our seasoned speakers, among them, and I'm not including myself in this group, I couldn't pick up any uhs or any other verbal graffiti in what they were saying. Now, it's been said that, I can't remember who said it, that comes with time. Yeah, right. That's all I can say. I'm working on it, but it's not making that much progress. I find when I don't use the verbal graffiti, this pause stuff, I pause, and it just goes on and on and on.
And everything goes blank.
Work on it. Everything goes blank. That's exactly right. So I still need to work on it. One of the things that I'm to do as the grammarian is to note words and phrases that I like. And I did want to say that I really liked rapid fire fun facts from Andrew. Thank you. That was good. Also, use of the word psychotherapist. It was fortunate that your wife is a psychotherapist because I like that word. So I never hear it again. So that was good. So all right. Also, Louise, crystal clear grammar, no verbal clutter. And I thought that was outstanding. And that's pretty much it for the grammarian's report this evening. Mr. General Evaluator.
For my general evaluation. As I said, this is my first time, and it's been a breeze. The meeting has just flowed very smoothly. It started on time. The topic of the meeting tonight was timely, as well as finding that today's the Celtic New Year, another extremely timely topic. So everything went smoothly. There were no pauses, no uncomfortable figuring things out as people jumped into the roles to help out. Phil apparently quickly previously, and Connie and Gantam.
Yeah.
Close enough?
Close enough, yeah.
Okay. Jumped in tonight. And everyone has done a marvelous job. And I'm going to keep it short and sweet if I can. We close to being done with the counting?
Well, just, yeah.
So
we had wrong cups, so it ended up being
not a problem.
Stuff,
so a very smooth and easy meeting, making my job inconsequential almost, which I like. So I turn it back over to our Toastmaster.
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator. In the spirit of things, of keeping things moving along, I first of all want to ask our guest, and I'm sorry, I don't recall your name. Alex, please stand. I don't know if we formally introduced you at the beginning of the meeting or not, but Alex, please stand and give us your impression of the meeting. I know this is at least your second time.
I like the way it's organized. It keeps flowing. It keeps moving. I like the way that you don't leave the podium, empty. No one's there. And I like the meetings, the topics, the intros. Overall, I really enjoy it. So I'm looking forward to coming back again and being a member. So,
thank you. Are there any other comments or points of interest that our members would like to make? Gotham, did you have anything to say?
Again, this is my third meeting here, and I really enjoyed today's meeting. As including the topics. Having a chance to learn something new about Darren as well as Andrew, and learning about Hans Christian Andersen. That was very, very interesting as well. So it's not just about how people come up to the lectern and give their speech. It's also it's a lot to do with the content as well, and we get to learn, or at least my side has had the opportunity to learn something new, every week. And again, I look forward to coming back again next week. So.
Sort of going along those lines, I think somebody once said you're supposed to learn something new every day. And I think when you come to a Toastmasters meeting, you at least learn one new thing, if not enough to make up for the whole week. Frank has indicated to remind everybody about the fall conference coming up this weekend, tomorrow, Saturday, Sunday, up in Hickory at the Crown Plaza. Are there any other announcements that members have or comments that want to be made? Yes, Louise.
I'll tell two things. Remember, if you have your CC, the Train the Trainer is Sunday afternoon. It's actually separate from the conference, but it's in the same location. It is an amazing workshop, and it's free. You need to email Jamie Stamey if you want to take part in that. You need to have your CC before you do. They're also having judges training. But there's a club I'm actually not a member of called I'm a member of 3 clubs. So there's a club that I'm not a member of that's having a meeting on November 17th, I believe. It's a Saturday. And you'll have to email the division governor, she's a member of it, for directions because it's a traveling club. They never meet at the same place.
Oh, okay.
But they're doing, the subject for that meeting is brain mapping for the workshop. And Barney Barnum's going to give one that I haven't heard, and I understand it's really good.
To see Barney Barnum is always a treat. He's a consummate Toastmaster.
So it's free, and I just want to tell everyone, if you're interested, contact Vicki Simpson, our division governor. I'll try and get more information next time.
Okay, thank you. And now the part of the meeting the electorate has waited to hear about. First of all, I would like Andrew and Darren to come up to receive their Icebreaker Award. Realize one of the objectives is to get up and come forward and begin speaking in front of an audience. So definitely an award in achieving that objective. Tonight's Evaluator Award goes to, drumroll please, Jose Gustavo. In the area of table topics, tonight's best table topic speaker, Bill Jones. I think you got it with about the no shirt.
Yes, that was the scariest costume.
I mean, that was Halloween past.
And I apologize for that.
And tonight's best speaker, Andrew Medley. And I'm not sure, have you received an award for just being a guest at Toastmasters, Alex? Well, please come up here. You cannot allow this meeting to go by without this. Thanks again for coming. We look forward to seeing you again. Have you got them received? Well, please, get up here. Goodness, God. Welcome to Toastmasters. It's great to have you with us. And now, we have two choices. We can be an electorate again and vote for next week's Toastmaster, or we can have a volunteer. Connie Rist, come forward. And in the honor of Valentine Toastmasters, I turn the gavel over to you, next week's Toastmaster, to close tonight's meeting.
And I will have to let you know what the thing's going to be.
Give us Steve, please sign up.
You got our born and raised. I know we
Well, thank you. The greatest stress for the Toastmaster during the week is seeing all those roles. It's like, no, look, the next one.
So there's a topic
I'm gonna definitely, well, I'm sorry I was late. Just seeing the time was so fast.
Yes. Yeah, you did have a time
I had the tidbit about the story because that's my own